12 months on from his win on the New Zealand rally, Colin McRae went back to NZ with the calls for his head ringing in his ears after his disappointment in Argentina. Juha Kankkunen started first, but was soon to find that he was both outpaced and outpsyched by the Subaru of Colin McRae. The young Scotsman came to New Zealand supporting Carlos Sainz's championship hopes, but things weren't quite going to turn out that way. McRae used this as a perfect opportunity to remind people just how good he was. Mickey Biasion was again off the pace in the leading Escort Cosworth. He had a down-on-power engine, but was far happier on a different note to become the father of a son just the day before the rally started. Armin Schwarz was back for another good finish, the Mitsubishi team having spent a lot of time testing in Wales, although observers wondered why they hadn't utilised their time in the right country. Didier Auriol was to be McRae's nearest challenger on the opening day, the Frenchman 25 seconds off the Flying Scotsman. For McRae, it all looked as though it had been very, very easy. He arrived at the service area in beautiful scenery. The Subaru definitely the car to beat. The New Zealand Rally is one of the driver's favourites on the calendar. It's run by enthusiastic and very friendly officials, as Derek Ringer was finding out.
Good, no problems, fairly steady. We had problems in the last stage with just too much gravel on the road. The cars behind were getting a bit faster, but that's part of the thing in this rally and some of the stages, so no problem.
Overall, the conditions a bit slippery with the rain, perhaps?
It's actually slightly better for us if the roads are wet, because it tends to keep the gravel down. If it's real dry roads, the gravel comes up to the surface and makes it even slippier than it is when it's wet.
So the plan of attack from here on in, what's the go for Colin McRae?
Sit fairly steady and just try and obviously not lose too much and see what happens.
You were quickest on that first special stage. A good omen for you perhaps, being back at NZ and defending your title?
I hope so.
Juha Kankkunen had lost a lot of time when he had a 180-degree spin with a Toyota. That in itself shouldn't have cost him all that much ground, but the major problem came when he couldn't actually find the room to flick the car round in the right direction again. Carlos Sainz, though, was in even bigger trouble. The Subaru's engine blew on special stage 5, and the Spaniard was out of the rally. A forlorn Sainz watched as the Subaru retired. Mickey Biasion was still struggling, his engine down on power. But Armin Schwarz was now involved in a splendid battle for third place with Ari Vatanen. At the moment, the Mitsubishi driver held the upper hand. Didier Auriol had gone off in his Toyota. He lost 2 minutes and fell to third place. In his efforts to fight his way back up through the field, he went off again, and this time he fell to 5th. He could console himself, however, with the knowledge that championship rival Sainz was out. And Ari Vatanen continued to battle with Armin Schwarz for that third place. Young English driver Richard Burns was in one of the only 2 surviving Subarus, although he was unable to match the pace of McRae here in New Zealand for the first time. The early Group N leader had been Jesus Puras, although he would retire, his Escort a long way off the road. And so too would soon be Burns' Subaru. He ran wide, hit a ditch, which flicked the car across the road, and eventually it plunged out of sight. Burns was out of the rally in disappointing fashion.
The back wheel just got out of the ruts where the grip is, onto the loose stuff. It's about 5th gear coming down the hill here. It dropped into a ditch on the right, flicked it over to the left, and hit a rock fairly well, hard enough to break all the rear suspension and throw us into the ditch here.
In effect, Colin McRae won the 1994 New Zealand Rally midway through. The opposition just couldn't catch him. In fact, the only real opposition to Colin McRae was Colin McRae. He had to keep his head and keep his cool. He did so, and he won here in New Zealand for the 2nd year running. It was an important breakthrough for the Scot, and it also quelled any doubts people may have had about him remaining as a Subaru Works driver. Juha Kankkunen had been flat out all rally long. He'd waited for a mistake from Colin McRae, but it was a mistake that never came. The Toyota driver had to content himself with second position and more points in the championship. Armin Schwarz eventually won his battle with Ari Vatanen to take third place. He'd had the pace to do it, but he had been held by Vatanen crashing out. The Mitsubishi team were a little disappointed not to be even higher than third, and people were still surprised that they'd gone testing in Wales and not New Zealand. Ari Vatanen was trying his hardest on the final day to snatch that third place from Schwarz, and then it all went wrong. The Escort flew off the road and was too badly damaged to continue. There was a brief fire under the bonnet, and although thankfully Vatanen and co-driver Fabrizio Pons were perfectly okay, the Escort was very second-hand. As Fabrizio Pons relayed the news, Vatanen was left pondering.
I made a mistake on notes. I changed the note from last year just to keep on the right-hand side of the corner and to go straight, but in fact I should have kept it that you have to actually turn right over. So I came straight into this hump. So it was my mistake making notes to make it too straight. In fact, there is just clearly a right-hand corner, which took me completely in the wrong place, and then I went a straight line.
Up into fourth place then came Kenneth Eriksson, and that had been good reward for the Swedish driver, whose car became a two-wheel drive Mitsubishi on the opening day. Eriksson was able to head past the stricken Escort and know that the crew were perfectly okay. It was a shame that we weren't seeing more of the Mitsubishi team in the World Championship, because when they were here, they were normally near the pace. Eriksson and Schwarz had both proved that the cars were good, but they just needed a little bit more development and a bit more speed. And Didier Auriol would finish in fifth place after all his dramas and led the championship by 3 points as the series headed away from New Zealand, a rally won by Colin McRae. Kankkunen took second for Toyota, with the two Mitsubishis third and fourth. Auriol was fifth, and in the championship, the Toyota driver now was just able to pull ahead.
Yeah, it's been a very good weekend for us as far as Colin's concerned. Of course, we did start with 4 cars. People forget that occasionally, but then there's only one place at the end of the day, and Colin's behaved perfectly. Not a mark on the car, impeccable drive.
What happens for Subaru after this?
Well, we've got Malaysia now, and we're in the lead of the Manufacturers' Championship now in Asia Pacific. The World Championship looks still wide open for Carlos, so it's a lot to fight for the rest of the season, that's for sure.
And Colin McRae was also hopeful that this wouldn't be his only victory of 1994.
The difference, I suppose, at the end is the gap's a lot bigger. But to drive the last half of yesterday and today very, very conservatively, which is just, I think, as difficult as having to drive as flat out to try and win.
Were you surprised by the ease with which you won?
Yeah, I would say so, but I mean, the car's been very, very good, especially on the twisty stages and Moto, and the Pirelli tyres have worked perfectly, so it's been good.
This was how the championship looked. Auriol was just 3 points to the good, with Sainz and Kankkunen tying for second. Armin Schwarz was fourth, but a good way back. Toyota were leading the Manufacturers' Championship as the series moved on to Finland for the 1000 Lakes Rally.